My studio was thriving, kids painting their dreams. James said, "I'll always support you." Then I found his email about missing funds. It mentioned my studio's name. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, where the air always smelled faintly of rust and regret. My name's Emily, and my childhood was a mess. My parents fought constantly, their voices crashing like thunder through our tiny house. Dad's temper would flare, and Mom would shrink, her eyes hollow with fear. I'd hide in my room, sketching furiously, letting charcoal and color drown out the chaos. Art was my escape, my way to breathe when the walls felt like they were closing in. By the time I was a teenager, I knew I wanted to help kids like me, kids from broken homes who needed a safe place to dream. Art had saved me, and I wanted to pass that on. At 27, I poured my heart into a dream, a nonprofit art center for low-income kids. I scraped together every penny I had, about $5,000, to rent a small space in Cleveland. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I imagined kids walking in, their eyes lighting up at the sight of paintbrushes and canvases, finding the same peace I did. That dream carried me forward, even when the world felt heavy. I'd lie awake at night, thinking of ways to make the center a haven. I wanted it to be more than a classroom. I wanted it to be a place where kids could forget their troubles, even for a few hours. But dreams don't pay bills, and I was about to learn that the hard way. I found a rundown storefront in Cleveland, tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. It was perfect. The rent was $800 a month, more than I could afford, but I signed the lease anyway. I called it the Bright Haven Art Center, a name that felt like a promise. I spent weeks scrubbing floors, painting walls a soft yellow, and hanging string lights to make it feel warm. Every dollar went to supplies, brushes, paints, sketch pads. I wanted the kids to walk in and feel like they belonged. The first class had 12 kids, all from low-income families in the neighborhood. Their clothes were worn, their eyes cautious, but when they picked up the brushes, something shifted. A girl named Mia, maybe 10, painted a vibrant sunset, her face glowing with pride. I brought in snacks, peanut butter sandwiches, juice boxes, apples. For some, it was their only meal that day. I'd watch them eat, paint, and laugh, and my heart felt full. This was what I'd dreamed of. But dreams don't run on hope alone. The center was free for the kids, so I relied on donations and a small grant from the city council, about $10,000 a year. It barely covered utilities and supplies. I didn't take a salary, living off instant noodles and whatever was left in my bank account. Volunteers helped when they could, but most days, it was just me. I'd stay up late, writing grant applications, begging local businesses for support. Some days, I'd get a $50 donation, and it felt like winning the lottery. The kids kept me going. There was a boy, Carlos, who drew intricate cityscapes, his pencil capturing every crack in the sidewalk. He'd talk about his mom working 2 jobs, his voice quiet but steady. I saw myself in him, in all of them, but the stress was relentless. Bills piled up. The council's grant wasn't guaranteed to renew. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Could I keep this place alive? The kids needed it. I needed it. But the numbers weren't adding up, and I could feel the ground slipping beneath me. The letter from the city council came on a rainy Tuesday. I tore it open, my hands shaking, hoping for good news. Instead, it was a gut punch. The council was cutting my grant. They said the Bright Haven Art Center wasn't impactful enough. Attendance had dropped to 5 kids a class. They weren't wrong, Mia and Carlos still came, but others had drifted away. Families moved, priorities shifted. I couldn't blame them, but it stung. Without that $10,000, I had nothing to keep the lights on. I tried to fight it. I called the council, pleaded my case, my voice cracking as I explained how much the kids needed this place. They didn't budge. Donations had dried up, 2 local businesses were struggling, and my $50 windfalls were gone. By the end of the month, I was behind on rent for the center. The landlord gave me 2 weeks to pay $2,400 or get out. I had $87 in my account. I stood in the empty classroom, staring at the yellow walls, the half-finished paintings. I'd poured everything into this place, and it was slipping away. I shut down the center at 29. Packing up was torture. I kept Carlos's cityscape sketch, tucking it into my bag like a piece of my heart. With no income, my own rent went unpaid. My apartment in Cleveland, a cramped $600 a month studio, was gone by winter. Eviction notices don't negotiate. At 31, I was homeless. I stuffed my clothes, a sketchbook, and a blanket into a duffel bag, and sat on a curb on East 9th Street, the city's pulse mocking my stillness. How had I gone from teaching kids to paint to this? My stomach churned with shame. I tried to stay invisible. Cleveland's streets were cold, the wind slicing through my thin jacket. I'd sleep in alleys, curled up behind dumpsters, my breath fogging in the night air. I'd wake up stiff, my fingers numb, and walk to a gas station to wash my face in the bathroom sink. I stretched $5 as far as it would go, cheap coffee, a stale donut. I'd sit in the library to stay warm, filling out job applications on their computers. Retail, waitressing, anything. But my resume was thin, no real job experience, just the art center. Rejections piled up like snow. I felt like a failure. I'd wanted to save kids, but I couldn't even save myself. The worst part was the loneliness. People walked past me, their eyes sliding away like I was a ghost. I missed the kids' laughter, the smell of paint. I missed feeling like I mattered. One night, shivering under a bridge, I clutched Carlos's sketch, tracing the lines with my finger. I wanted to give up, but something in me wouldn't let go. I had to keep going, even if I didn't know how. I couldn't stay on the streets forever. The cold was relentless, and I was tired of being invisible. Swallowing my pride, I called Sarah, my closest friend from college. She lived in a small apartment in Lakewood, just outside Cleveland. Her voice was warm, steady, when she heard my story. "Come stay with me," she said, no hesitation. I dragged my duffel bag to her place, my heart heavy with gratitude and shame. Her couch became my bed, a lifeline I didn't deserve. Sarah's apartment was cozy, filled with with plants and soft light, but I felt like an intruder. She'd cook dinner, offering me plates of spaghetti or soup, and I'd eat in silence, my thoughts screaming. I was 31, jobless, homeless, and crashing on a friend's couch. Every morning, I'd force a smile, thank her, and head out to job hunt. I applied everywhere: coffee shops, warehouses, offices. Most didn't call back. The ones that did saw my gap-filled resume and passed. "You ran an art center? That's nice, but we need experience," they'd say. My stomach twisted with every rejection. After 2 weeks, I knew I had to leave. Sarah never said it, but I could feel the strain. I didn't want to be a burden. With $20 left, I bought a used sleeping bag from a thrift store and moved into my beat-up Honda Civic. It was cramped, the seats hard, but it was mine. I learned to park in quiet lots near Edgewater Park where no one would notice. I'd crack the window for air, curl up in the backseat, and try to sleep through the city's hum. Mornings meant gas station bathrooms, splashing water on my face to feel human again. Survival became a routine. I'd scrounge for change, buy a $1 burger, and ration it for the day. Libraries were my refuge: free Wi-Fi, warmth, a place to charge my phone. I kept applying, kept failing. One interview at a bookstore felt promising, but they chose someone with more retail skills. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat in my car, clutching Carlos's sketch, its lines blurring through my tears. I'd failed him, failed myself, but I didn't quit. Something stubborn in me refused to break. I started selling old clothes for cash, $5 here, $10 there. I'd linger in diners, nursing a coffee to stay warm, overhearing conversations about jobs. One day, a flyer for a cleaning gig caught my eye: $12 an hour, no experience needed. I called, got hired on the spot. It was grueling, scrubbing floors until my hands ached, but it was money. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control, like I could fight my way back. I was drowning in Cleveland's gray noise, the endless grind of cleaning jobs and restless nights in my car. I needed a break, a moment to breathe. I remembered the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, just a short drive south. As a kid, I'd loved hiking, the way trees whispered calm into my chaos. One chilly morning, with $15 in my pocket, I filled my Honda's tank and drove to the park. The city faded, replaced by rolling hills and the scent of pine. I parked at a trailhead near Brandywine Falls. The air was crisp, the forest quiet except for the rustle of leaves. My sneakers crunched on the path as I walked, my duffel slung over my shoulder. For the first time in months, my shoulders loosened. I found a clearing by a small river, the water glinting under the afternoon sun. It felt like a gift. I set up a makeshift camp with my sleeping bag and a tarp from my car. That night, I slept under stars, the river's murmur lulling me into peace. Days blended together. I'd fish in the river, catching small trout with a cheap rod I'd bought for $5 at a yard sale. I gathered blackberries, their tartness sharp on my tongue. I sketched the forest, my pencil tracing the curve of branches, the ripple of water. Carlos's cityscape stayed tucked in my bag, a reminder of what I'd lost. But out here, I could forget the shame. I wasn't a failure in the woods, just Emily, surviving. The simplicity was a balm, each breath easier than the last. I taught myself to move quietly, to blend into the forest's rhythm. A deer watched me one morning, its eyes steady, unafraid. I smiled, feeling connected to something bigger. But reality crept in. My food dwindled, berries and fish weren't enough. My car's battery was dying, and winter was coming. The park's trails would soon be buried in snow. I sat by the river one evening, my hands cold, staring at my reflection. This wasn't a life, it was an escape. I couldn't hide forever. Packing up hurt, I folded my tarp, rolled my sleeping bag, and tucked my sketches away. The forest had given me clarity, a spark of strength I hadn't felt in months. I wasn't ready to face Cleveland streets again, but I knew I had to. The kids like Carlos deserved better, and so did I. As I drove back, the trees blurred past, and I whispered a promise to myself. I'd find a way to start over, no matter how hard it got. Cleveland hit me like a slap. The city's noise, its crowded streets, felt suffocating after the quiet of the Cuyahoga Valley. I parked my Honda near a Dollar General, my hands gripping the wheel. I wasn't the same Emily who'd fled to the woods. The forest had reminded me I was still fighting, still alive. I had $12 left, enough for a coffee and a plan. I wasn't giving up. I threw myself into survival. I took any job I could find, washing dishes at a diner on West 25th Street for $10 an hour, scrubbing floors in office buildings, even raking leaves for a landscaping crew. The work was brutal, my back aching, my hands raw. Each paycheck, maybe $200 a week, went to gas, food, and parking fines when I misjudged a spot. I still slept in my car, but I felt a shift. Every dollar earned was a step away from the curb I'd sat on months ago. The library became my office. I'd sit at a scratched wooden table, applying for better jobs online. Secretarial work, retail, anything stable. Rejections still came, but I kept going. I sold more clothes for cash, $15 for a jacket, $8 for boots. I'd buy day-old bagels, stretch them across meals. My body was tired, but my mind was sharp, fueled by a stubborn spark. I wasn't just surviving, I was clawing my way back. One evening, after a long shift at the diner, my apron still smelling of grease, I stopped at a small cafe on Euclid Avenue. I had $4, enough for a black coffee. I sat in a corner, my hands wrapped around the warm mug, staring at nothing. A voice broke through. "Emily?" I looked up, my heart skipping. My heart. It was James, a friend from my college days at Ohio State. His face was older, sharper, but his smile was the same, warm, steady. We'd been close back then, bonding over late-night study sessions and volunteer gigs. He looked put together, his coat crisp, his eyes kind. "What are you doing here?" he asked, sitting down. I froze, my cheeks burning. How do you tell someone you're homeless, barely scraping by? But James's gaze was soft, not judging. So I spilled it all: the art center's collapse, the eviction, the nights in my car. My voice shook, but I kept going, laying bare the shame and loss. He didn't flinch. He listened, his coffee untouched, his eyes locked on mine. When I finished, he leaned forward. "You're still the strongest person I know," he said. My throat tightened. He wasn't offering pity, he meant it. James told me he worked at a tech firm in Columbus doing well. "Let me help," he said. I wanted to say no, to cling to my pride, but I was tired of falling. I nodded, and for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope, like a match struck in the dark. James didn't waste time. A week after our cafe meeting, he called with a lead. His company in Columbus needed a data entry clerk, $50 an hour, no experience required. "It's not glamorous, but it's steady," he said. I packed my Honda and drove 2 hours from Cleveland, my heart pounding with nerves and hope. Columbus felt different, brighter, less heavy. James met me at his office, a sleek building downtown. He introduced me to the hiring manager, vouched for me. I got the job on the spot. The work was monotonous, typing numbers, filing reports, but it was a lifeline. My first paycheck, $600, felt like a fortune. I could buy groceries, not just scraps. James checked in daily, bringing me coffee, asking how I was settling in. I felt out of place among the polished office workers, my thrift store clothes too worn, my hands still rough from cleaning jobs. But James never made me feel small. "You're doing great," he'd say, his voice steady, grounding. After work, we'd grab coffee at a place near the Scioto River. We'd talk about college, laugh about old pranks, but also share the weight of the years since. He'd lost his dad, struggled with burnout. I told him about the kids at the art center, how their smiles kept me going. He listened, really listened, his eyes never leaving mine. I started to feel something new, warmth, a pull toward him. I pushed it down, scared to hope for more. One night, James invited me to his apartment for dinner. My stomach nodded. Was this pity? But his smile was genuine. His apartment cozy with books and soft light. We cooked pasta, bumping into each other in his tiny kitchen, laughing. Over dinner, he told me he admired my fight, my heart. My cheeks burned. I hadn't felt seen in years. As we sat on his couch, the air grew quiet, charged. I leaned in, my heart racing, and kissed him. He kissed me back, gentle but sure. That night changed everything. James became my anchor, his belief in me a spark. He encouraged me to teach art again. I started small, offering evening classes at a community center in Columbus. Just 3 kids at first, but their excitement mixing colors, sketching dreams lit me up. I was painting again too, late at night, my brush moving like it hadn't in years. For the first time, I saw a future, not just a fight to survive. With my data entry job steady, I saved enough to rent a tiny studio apartment in Columbus. It was $700 a month, barely 400 square feet, but it was mine. I painted the walls a soft blue, hung my sketches, and scattered art supplies across a wobbly table. Carlos's cityscape got a frame, a reminder of why I kept going. For the first time in years, I slept in a bed, not a car. I could breathe again, like the world wasn't crushing me. I poured my heart back into art. My evening classes at the community center grew 5 kids, then 10. I started a small art studio in a rented corner of a rec center, charging just enough to cover supplies. The kids weren't as rough around the edges as my old group in Cleveland, but they needed this space. One boy, Liam, reminded me of Carlos. He was quiet, always in the back, sketching jagged lines. One day, he showed me a painting, bold reds and blacks, a storm over a city. It was raw, powerful. I told him to keep going, and his shy smile hit me hard. I was making a difference again. Teaching brought me back to life. Watching the kids mix colors, laugh, create it was everything I'd lost. I'd stay late, planning lessons, sketching my own work. My paintings were different now, darker, but alive with hope. James was there through it all, bringing takeout when I forgot to eat, cheering at my small wins. Our love grew quietly, steady, like a river carving stone. He'd hold my hand, his warmth grounding me, and I'd wonder how I got so lucky. Looking back, losing the art center was a wrecking ball, but it rebuilt me. I had to hit rock bottom to let go of my pride, to accept James's help, to open my heart. Without those nights in my car, I wouldn't have found him, or this new path. My studio isn't the bright haven, but it's enough. Liam's paintings, the kids' laughter, it's why I started this. I'm stronger now, not because I survived, but because I learned to ask for help, to love, to keep creating. James and I still talk about that cafe moment, how one coffee changed everything. Life's funny like that. The darkest days can lead to light you never saw coming. Every time I see Liam paint or feel James's hand in mine, I'm reminded, no matter how deep the hole, there's always a way out.